Imagine a world where questioning the church meant risking your life. A world where the only path to salvation was dictated by powerful religious leaders. But one man dared to stand against this authority, sparking a revolution that would change Christianity forever. His name, Martin Luther. His weapon, a simple list of complaints nailed to a church door. This is the story of the Protestant Reformation. The following images in this video have been altered and generated using AI technology. They are not exact replicas of historical events or people, but are used to provide a visual representation of what the events may have looked like. These images are intended solely for illustrative purposes, to help bring the story to life. Before we dive into Martin Luther's role, let's set the stage. The Catholic Church was the most powerful institution in Europe during the early 16th century. It controlled not just religious life, but political power as well. For centuries, the Church had been central to European life, shaping everything from governance to daily living. However, with great power came corruption. One of the most controversial practices was the selling of indulgences. This system allowed people to essentially buy forgiveness for their sins, a sort of get-out-of-purgatory card. Wealthy nobles and ordinary peasants alike poured their money into the church, hoping to secure their place in heaven. This practice, among others, raised concerns about the integrity of the church. Martin Luther, a German monk and theologian, was deeply disturbed by this. He believed that salvation could not be bought or sold. It was a gift from God, available to all through faith alone. His dissatisfaction with the church's corruption led him to action. On October 31st, 1517, Luther took a bold step. He wrote 95 propositions, commonly known as the 95 Theses, criticizing the church's practices, particularly the sale of indulgences. Legend has it that he nailed them to the door of the castle church in Wittenberg, an act that would become symbolic of defiance against the Catholic Church. But what did these theses say exactly? Luther's arguments were clear. The church had lost its way. He rejected the idea that indulgences could reduce time in purgatory and called for a return to biblical principles. His message resonated with many, especially those frustrated by the church's greed and moral decay. But Luther didn't just stop at criticizing indulgences. He argued that the Pope had no special authority over salvation, and that the Bible was the ultimate source of religious truth. This radical stance challenged the very foundations of Catholicism. At first, Luther's protest could have remained a local issue, but something changed the game: the printing press. Invented only a few decades earlier, this technology allowed Luther's ideas to spread like wildfire. Pamphlets containing his theses were quickly reproduced and distributed across Europe. Suddenly, Luther's message was in the hands of thousands of people who had never heard such criticisms of the church before. The church, of course, was not happy. Pope Leo X condemned Luther's writings and ordered him to retract his statements. But Luther refused. In 1521, he was excommunicated, and later that year, he was summoned to the Diet of Worms, a meeting of church and political leaders. Luther stood firm in his beliefs. When asked to recant, he famously said, "Here I stand, I can do no other." This moment cemented Luther as a hero to some and a heretic to others, but it also marked a significant turning point in the Reformation. The Reformation quickly grew beyond Luther. Other reformers such as John Calvin and Huldrych Zwingli picked up the torch, building on Luther's ideas and further shaping what would become Protestantism. Luther's teachings led to the formation of various Protestant denominations, including Lutheranism, Calvinism, and the Anglican Church. The Reformation also had profound political effects. Many rulers in Northern Europe saw an opportunity to break away from the Catholic Church's influence, which often interfered with their authority. By embracing Protestantism, they could assert their independence and confiscate church lands and wealth. This political shift deepened the divide between Catholic and Protestant regions, leading to decades of religious wars. At the same time, the Catholic Church responded with its own reforms. The Counter-Reformation sought to address some of the corruption Luther had highlighted, but it also reaffirmed many traditional doctrines, solidifying the division between Catholics and Protestants. The Protestant Reformation wasn't just a religious movement. It was a cultural and intellectual revolution. By challenging the authority of the Church, Luther and the Reformers opened the door to a new way of thinking. The Reformation encouraged the idea of personal faith and direct access to the Bible, diminishing the role of clergy as intermediaries between God and man. This shift also influenced education. Protestant leaders pushed for literacy so that people could read the Bible for themselves, sparking a wave of educational reforms across Europe. Schools and universities flourished as literacy rates soared. The Reformation also laid the groundwork for the Enlightenment. By questioning established authority and advocating for individual interpretation, it set the stage for future challenges to political and social institutions. Martin Luther's act of defiance didn't just change the Church, it changed the world. His 95 Theses sparked a revolution that reshaped religion, politics, and culture in Europe. The ripple effects of the Reformation are still felt today, from religious freedom to the emphasis on personal faith. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the history of the Reformation, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more fascinating explorations of history. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.